What are you supposed to do in a moment where you feel triggered? How do you calm yourself down when you have all of this intense emotion activated inside of your body that's just propelling you towards a certain direction or action or thought or something to say? And it's often something that you're going to regret if you do it. It's this reactive behavior that it just feels like it takes control of you in the moment. And then afterwards, you're left with the effects of that, the mess that it's created, the hurt that it's caused for you and whoever was exposed to that. And this is a real part of life. This is a real part of relating to one another. So, how do you navigate that in the moment? And more importantly, how do you navigate it after? There's a lot of conversation around how to calm yourself down. And you hear traditional things like go for a walk, take a relaxing bath, journal your thoughts and how you're feeling. And yeah, those can help to calm down the emotions in the moment. If you are in an actual moment of high reactivity and you know that if you don't get out of it, you're going to say or do something you're going to regret, then yeah, like remove yourself from the situation. Take a few deep breaths, pause, don't say anything, don't do anything. Breathe until you can feel that 10 calm itself down to a 9, to an 8, to a 7, and then assess what's the best course of action there in the moment. That's what we can do in the moment, but what do we do after? Because here's what's not spoken about enough is that that moment has created some really intense emotion inside of you and it hasn't been released. You may be able to calm down the nervous system so it doesn't feel so dysregulated anymore, but that does not mean you have released the emotion underneath it that was caused by this experience. And what happens is we start to stack these experiences, these moments, these emotions on top of each other. And we start to get so filled up with all of this intense emotion that we feel like at times the littlest things can just make us snap. And sometimes it does. Oftentimes, when you're filled up with all this emotion, something happens and you react to it in a way where the reaction doesn't match the moment because the reaction is the compilation of all of the things that have led up to that. And, going for a walk and taking a relaxing bath and journaling your thoughts is not going to release those emotions that way. There is a deep hurt, there's an anger, there's a frustration, there's a sadness that has potency inside of your body that needs to be released. Now, I've walked a very unorthodox path in regards to navigating these things, learning how to be with my intense emotions, my reactivity, how to release those skillfully, how to communicate around them, how to clean up my messes, all of these things. And I still continue to have situations where I'm just instantly regretting how I showed up to it. But they're becoming fewer and fewer. They, the messes aren't as big as they used to be. And I've become really good at meeting the moment as quickly as I can. But one of the key things that has led to my ability to do that is my ability to release emotions skillfully. And I'm shooting this right now at a time where I just finished an emotional release practice. And so I wanted to speak into it while it was still fresh in my mind and in my body. Last week I was talking with a close friend of mine, Amiri, somebody that you'll hear me mention periodically because he's such a important and significant person in my life. And him and I have been walking this path together for quite some time. And he's just a soul brother for me. And so he's the person that I go to when I really need to talk about what's going on in my life because I know he will listen, he will be curious, he will be non-judgmental, and he will offer perspective that he knows will serve me in that moment, even if that's holding the mirror and reflecting back to me things I need to see. And so I was sharing with them just these things that I was getting frustrated with, this different area, like different elements where I felt like I was compromising and it almost felt like the brat was coming out in me, where it was just like I wasn't speaking my no, and there was just certain things I just wanted to say no to. And he called me on it. He's like, it's like I feel it. It's like I think you need to release that. I think it's time for an emotional release practice. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And so a few days passed, and I finally went up to my practice room. And the way I do emotional release is I have a designated room in my house. And inside of that room is a large sheepskin rug that covers the floor. And I have some candles. I have and a speaker that's in that room just to set the ambiance. And I put a specific playlist on. And for me, for like emotional release, I like to just do it raw. So I strip down to my naked body. I turn the playlist on. I will set an intentional time so it's not something that's happening for a long duration unless I feel like I need that. And I start and I just lay on the ground. Now, in order to move emotion, it requires three components. It requires movement, sound, and breath. And so when your body's in movement, you're taking deep breaths and you're making sound, that is what stimulates emotion. And so I hit the playlist and I immediately just start to slowly move my body as I'm laying on the ground. And as I'm doing this, my body's at the point now where it understands what I'm doing and it will respond almost immediately. But in the beginning, it felt very unnatural. It felt very uncomfortable. It felt like there was like this irrational fear that people could see me and they were judging me and laughing at me. And I just felt very uncomfortable in my body to allow it to just move in a flow freely. And that was a very interesting experience for me to see how uncomfortable I was in my own body. But now I've gotten to a place where as I start to move, that emotion immediately starts to channel. And I wasn't even necessarily going in there with the intention to move that kind of bratty energy that was in me, but that's immediately what came out. And so when you're doing emotion release, there's different tactics, tools that you can use. You can hand scream, you can floor stomp, you can tantrum, you can pillow stomp. There's a variety of different things you do just with intentional movement to stimulate emotion to move. And so as I was laying there within the first few seconds, I just started tantruming. You think about a kid laying on the ground throwing a tantrum, banging their hands and feet onto the floor. That's exactly what I was doing. And I was just letting out sound like ah. I was letting out some no's. No, no. I have a pillow there. I was screaming into the pillow. And I was just letting that part of me be heard. I was letting that part of me just express itself. It wasn't necessarily the part that I wanted to listen to. It wasn't the one that I wanted to be driving the ship, but it also is an aspect of me that I don't want to ignore because it is influencing and impacting my experience, my reality. And once I kind of got that out, I just continued to move. I was doing some pillow screams. I was doing some hip thrusts, just different tools, which at the time of this of me having this conversation with you, I'm in the midst of creating a little mini course that's going to outline how to use all of these tools. So I'll be sharing that with you soon. So all this will kind of make sense once you see that. But just tools that you're using there to continue to move emotion. And for me, I just continued to cycle through these different movements, different positions until I felt like the energy had cleared. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like you empty the bucket and the bucket stays empty for a little bit, but it immediately starts to fill back up. And doing a practice like this is emptying the bucket so that it doesn't get too full, so that it doesn't, start to overflow. Because that overflow is when real reactivity starts to show up, well, real harm can be done, real hurt can be created. And so I was able to just empty my bucket. And then I turned the music off and closed my practice and I came out and I just felt clear. I felt all of the little agitation in my nervous system and my body. It was gone. It was dissipated because I was able to let out, some roars of intense emotion that was in me. I was able to shake it out and move. Oftentimes I do that. I cry, I sob. Often I do that. There's just, there's hurt that I experience in life. There's sadness, there's pressure, and there's frustration, and it's just hard sometimes. And those are when you're moving emotion, it will often come out in either uh, sobbing, crying, or it will come out in rage. Sometimes it'll come out in laughter. It just depends. It's like whatever the energy is present in the body, it's giving it permission and the space to express itself. And I'll tell you, while that's happening, my mind is completely turned off. That's the key to it. When you're in your head, you're not in the practice. And so when you're not in your head, it's just like you're just immersed in the energy and the flow of your own body. And when you're in that place is when you can really start to move it and liberate yourself from all of this suppressed emotion. You know, you think about doing a practice like this and you might think like, I would never do that. That sounds ridiculous. That wouldn't work for me. What have you? All kinds of thoughts in the head about how that just wouldn't be the way for you. But I challenge you with this. It's if what you were already doing was working, you most likely wouldn't be listening to this conversation. If what we're being told works, there wouldn't be so many of us walking around in just a reactive state. Almost everybody is walking around in a reactive state and they don't know how to. I don't mean all the time. It's just that people are easily triggered. And when they are triggered, they let the reactivity take control of the situation. And they don't do anything to actually clear the space to empty the bucket. And this is why we are getting so isolated. It's why there's such a divide in so many of us around different things because we don't know how to talk to each other, because we don't know how to do it skillfully, and because we don't know how to control our emotions. And one of the things that we need to do in order to do that is to empty our bucket so our emotions don't feel so intense to the point that we can't control them. They're too reactive because we do get to that place where it's just blinding and no rational thought can enter the moment. But if we keep our bucket empty, if we continue to do it consistently with practice, it radically reduces the likelihood for moments to get so intense you get blinded to the point that you can no longer access intentional thought. And that's the mentality behind practices like this. And yeah, it's unorthodox. Yeah, it may feel a little weird for you in the beginning. Yeah, you may be in your head the first few times that you do it, but what are the other options? What else are you being taught how to do to release this emotion? Yeah, you might be able to go do a really good workout and get those endorphins flying and move some energy there and feel really good. And that is an outlet, but it's not allowing you to release the deep rage, hurt, sadness, fear, anger, frustration that you're feeling in the body. And those energies need to have an outlet to be expressed. Otherwise, they will continue to be suppressed inside of your body and just continuing to create agitation to the nervous system and causing you to be much more easily triggered and reactive than you should be. And I wanted to I wanted to share that with you just to start to shift the perspective for you, to shift the point of view, to share it from my lens because this is a practice that I believe in because of the rooms that I've been exposed to, the paths that I've walked. And I see what works and I see what doesn't. I see the limitations of a lot of things that we're taught. And we're being taught in a way as if it's supposed to be all inclusive. It's supposed to create the desired effect, and it just has limitations to it. And so now you're being given something that comes with expectations of it to provide a bigger result than it has the capacity to, and that's just going to lead to more frustration. And if we want to do bigger things, if we really want to step into the healing, to the intentionality of who we want to be, of how we want to show up in life and relationship, and just how we feel about ourselves, then we have to be open to doing things differently. We have to be open to exploring things that may feel incredibly contractive for you. The thought of it just might just feel like, I don't want to do that at all. But that's when we need to practice our self awareness and understand, okay, why am I feeling so close to this idea? What's at the root here? There's some sort of belief here that probably doesn't serve me. And as we learn these skills, we'll be able to pause and self assess and inner reflect to identify what is the belief that's causing this reaction. And do I want to keep it or do I want to change it? And part of that might be leaning into this uncomfortable activity, this uncomfortable action to give me a new reference to help me change that belief. And this is how we really start to take control of our inner world and lead it in the direction that we want it to go. If you have any questions around, how these practices work, or if you need to just dialogue around anything that you're working through, and what would be an appropriate practice for that specific scenario, feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram. I answer all my messages. You can shoot me a voice memo if you want. And if you want to have a deeper conversation, you can always visit me on my website at arvinanderson.com, and you can book a quick call with me there. Um, but as always, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me about these things, and I'm here to walk this path with you. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.